So today we're going to look at unit pricing. And unit pricing really is a natural extension of dividing decimals, since really when we're dealing with unit prices, we're dealing with money, which has decimals, and so it sort of all works together. And so when we're finding a unit price, what we're talking about is the price for one unit of an item. For example, the price per gallon means the price for 1 gallon of gas. The price per ounce means the price for 1 ounce of something. And the way that we find the unit price is we divide the price by however many ounces or gallons or whatever else the unit is that we're buying, however what we're buying is measured. So, for example, if we're looking at 6 pairs of shorts for $75, if we can get 6 pairs for $75, we need to take the 75 and split it into 6 pieces. In other words, we need to do 75 divided by 6. And if we do that, we're going to get that each pair, we're going to get this as our answer. Now, this is money. So remember, money has to be 2 places after the decimal. So we're going to rewrite that as $12.50. And that's $12.50 per means for one pair. So if we wanted to literally go over and mark each pair of shorts, we could. Each pair is $12.50. So $12.50 for this pair, $12.50 for this pair, $12.50 for this pair, $12.50 for this pair, $12.50 for this pair. Each pair is $12.50 for a total price of $75 for 6 pairs. But the unit price is $12.50 per pair, because unit price means how much for one. It's $12.50 for one pair. Where we often see this used is in the grocery store. So, for example, if I can buy 20 ounces of pancake mix for $2.69, I might want to know the cost per ounce. So I can take the total cost, which is $2.69, and split it into 20 pieces, or divide it by 20, because that's the cost for 20 ounces rather. I don't want the cost for 20 ounces I don't want the cost for 20 ounces. I want the cost for 1 ounce. So $2.69 divided by 20 gives me this answer. Now, we don't normally write money with more than 2 places after the decimal, and we could go ahead and say that that rounds to 13 cents. Sometimes when we're comparing unit prices, though, we might actually need those extra couple places to be able to compare. So this we could say is 13 cents, and it's 13 cents per ounce. It's really important to use that per whatever the unit is, so we know how it is that the item is measured. Let's look at a couple of other examples of using unit pricing, or looking at unit pricing. These are examples, or this is an example of what you might see in a grocery store that helps you to compare unit prices. So, for example, I can look at this tag that's up here at the top, and when I look at this one, there are some interesting pieces of information. This $12.99 is the total cost. And I can see some other things here. I can see what it is that I'm buying. I'm buying Purina Chow. I'm buying some dog food, evidently. And then right here, here at the bottom, I can see how much I'm buying. I'm buying 25 pounds. And then what's helpful on these tags when they're in the grocery store is I can also see the unit price right here, 52.0 cents per pound. And the way that they worked that out is they did $12.99 divided by 25, because there's 25 pounds. And if you actually did that on the calculator, you would get this as your answer. Notice that's going to round to 52 cents per ounce, or even 52.0 cents per pound, rather, not per ounce. So we can see that in this bag of Purina Chow, each pound costs 52 cents. If I look at another bag, notice here's another bag that I made up that has Purina Chow in it. It's $3.19 total. So it may seem like the better deal because it's certainly a lot cheaper than $12.99. But when I start looking at it, I cannot compare that way. I have to compare the price per pound, because of course a bigger bag is going to be more expensive. I need to know how much for each pound that's in the bag. That will help me compare. So I can see that it's a 4-pound bag that I'm buying. So if I take the $3.19 and divide that by 4, that's going to tell me the cost for 1 pound of the dog food. And if I do that, I'm going to find that 1 pound is 70, whoops, is 0.7975. 7,975 ten thousandths of a dollar. And probably what's going to make the most sense with that is to round it off and say that that's really actually um, about 80 cents per pound. And I could write it like that. I could also write it as, if I wanted to, I could write 79.8 cents per pound. So I could write it like that. I could have also, if I wanted to, written that it was approximately 80 cents per pound. Either of those would be okay. But what I can see, most importantly, by looking at that is that certainly, even though the $12.99 bag costs more, it is certainly the better deal because 1 pound of food in that bag is 52 cents, and 1 pound of food in the smaller bag is 79.8 cents. So certainly, the bigger bag has a lower unit price. It's the better deal. And I can look at using unit prices in other ways as well. If I look, for example, at a couple of problems or a couple of problem-solving situations with this, the unit price for a can of green beans is 7 cents per ounce. So what is the cost of a 16-ounce can? Well, this is a little different. I'm not finding the unit price. I have been given the unit price. The unit price is 7 cents per pound. That means 7 cents for 1 pound. I want to know, or 1 ounce rather. I want to know the cost for 16 ounces. So I'm going to need to take that 7 cents and multiply it by 16. And if I do that 7 tenths, or 7 hundredths rather, 16 times, I'm going to get $1.12. Does that make sense for the cost of a can of green beans? Yeah, pretty much. So my answer is going to make sense there. Let's look at another problem. Ribbon costs 80 cents per yard. You have $5 to spend. How much ribbon can you buy? So if I look at this one, it's 80 cents per yard. That means 80 cents for 1 yard. I have $5 total to spend. How much ribbon can I buy? Well, I want to take that $5 and I want to split it up into parts that are each 80 cents because each of those parts is going to represent 1 yard of ribbon that I can buy. So if I do that, 5 divided by 80, I'm going to get this answer. Now, is it possible that I can buy 6 and 25 hundredths of a yard of ribbon? Well, yes, I can buy part of a yard of ribbon. So that's okay to put. Now, let's say it had been something like I was buying something like dogs. Can I buy part of a dog? No, in that case I would have had to go around to a whole number. But I don't have to do that for this because it is okay to buy part of a yard. Now, if you weren't sure how to do that as a division, could you do something like this? 1 yard is 80 cents. 2 yards would be $1.60. 3 yards would be another 80 cents, so it would be $2.40. 4 yards would be $3.20. 5 yards would be $4 even. 6 yards, if I had another 80 cents, would be $4.80. 7 yards would be $5.60. Now notice I can definitely see from that it has to be somewhere between 6 and 7 yards, and it's going to be closer to 6 than it is 7 yards because I only have $5 to spend, and 6 yards is $4.80. So I could go then so far even as to say, well, if each yard is 80 cents, I can spend 20 cents more. So that's 20 is 1/4 of 80. I can buy 1/4 of another yard, or 25 hundredths. So that's how I could solve that particular problem. Let's look at one more example. The Food Line sales paper shows that you can buy 5 blocks of cheese for $12. You are making your world famous macaroni and cheese. It calls for 7 blocks of cheese. How much will that cost? Now, first and foremost, I might start by just sort of thinking about this problem. Is it going to be more or less than $12? Hopefully, you realize it's going to be more than $12 because it says I can buy 5 blocks for $12 and I'm going to need 7 blocks. So it's got to be more than $12. Now, if I want to know how much 7 blocks are, could I double the 5 blocks and say, oh, that 10 blocks would be $12 or would be $24 rather? Well, that might give me some idea that it's going to have to be between $12 and $24, but I need 7 blocks of cheese, not 5 and not 10, somewhere in between. So it has to be somewhere in between $12 and $24. The best thing I can do is find the unit price. $12 divided by 5 blocks of cheese is going to give me that each block of cheese is going to cost me $2.40. So $2.40 per block. Well, I can then say, well, if it's $2.40 per block and I need 7 blocks, then $2.40 times 7 is going to be how much it's going to cost me to buy my 7 blocks of cheese. And that's going to be $16.80. That should definitely, hopefully, be some really good macaroni and cheese. Hopefully you've gotten some ideas about how you can use unit prices and how to find unit prices and where they might be helpful. This is definitely one of the best consumer math lessons that you can learn. It certainly helps you to get the best deal when you're out shopping. So look for those shelf tags that have unit prices and use them to help you find the best deal on your items.